fancy experiments. I'm a theoretical condensed matter physicist. I work at a new institute in Hyderabad, and I'm still associated with the Interdisciplinary Science Bangalore. That's where we are now. That's the drawing of where we will be in a year. These are some colleagues. That's the construction site. And it's an unusual institute in that, at least for the foreseeable future, we will not have departments. We'll have physicists, chemists, biologists, engineers in one place, and we'll have lots of graduate students. So that's the idea. So I'll presumably all of you were at Julia Yeomans' lecture on active liquid crystals, is that right? Okay, so you remember some of it. Okay, good. In any case, I will inflict some background on you and some key results from the area possibly discussed in Julia's lecture. I wasn't there, so I don't know. And then tell you about the material of today's lecture. And I'll sort of tell you some results and tell you some aspects of how we got them. For the first time in my life, I'm going to be using clicker technology, which I other people are using. But it's harder than usual because I run Ubuntu and this clicker doesn't understand it. So I have to switch to it from it. Let's see how it goes. Okay. So the systems I'm interested in are a little different from ordinary liquid crystals, but liquid crystal physics enters in interesting ways, as you will see. So the motivation for the study of active systems is simply that you want to study collections of particles, each of which is taking up and using energy and doing something. Okay? That obviously that goes for all of us and many of our components, but also for some very interesting chemical and mechanical limitations, one of which I'll say a little bit about during the lecture. And although the ostensible reason why physicists are entering areas related to biology is because they think that they will make a big difference to biology, the primary and most selfish motivation is biology is a wonderful place to find problems, to engage the physicist mind, and to find problems in which the stuff you learned from your mother's knee about conservation laws and symmetry and so forth can be used in new and interesting ways in a setting where the rules have changed. And so that is a large part of my motivation. I'll tell you about that a bit. And I'll broadly, some of what I'm talking about involves the hydrodynamics of an ambient fluid, and some of it you can think of particles moving in a kind of dry substrate. So first of all, what is an active particle? An active particle is something which sort of is made to keep undergoing a chemical reaction, a one-way chemical reaction. And in going through the reaction, it's coupled to its surroundings in such a way that it moves, it translates, it rotates, it oscillates, it does something. You can look at it the following way, that actually you can look at almost any energy-using device the following way, that this system can be characterized by a two-dimensional abstract configuration space, one direction of which is an internal chemical direction, and the other is a spatial direction, could be translational, rotational, whatever. And the physical picture, if you like, is that what you are doing is you are feeding it energy to make a chemical reaction go one way. So you are applying a generalized force in that direction. But this device is so configured that even though you are pushing that way, it not only moves that way, but also this way. A very simple cartoon of that could be that you've got a surface with deep grooves on it, you've got a little particle sitting in those grooves. If you push gently on the particle, not so much that it comes out of the groove, which is slip, which is another matter, then you can see that it will tend to move in the grooves, which means while obliging you by moving in the chemical direction which you're pushing it, it also ends up moving in the spatial direction. So that's actually a chemical engine. Okay? And you can look at many things this way. This driving force could be the maintained chemical potential difference between ATP and its hydrolysis products, in the particular case of a biochemical engine, but you can think more generally of just maintaining the amount of available fuel as it gets used up and keep pushing it down. Muscles, exactly, yeah. So, everything we do, my talking, my waving my hands, all this stuff is happening because of machine learning. All right. The reason I'm talking in the liquid crystals meeting is because active particles are often oriented, and the fact that they tend to move in some direction means they're probably configured to have an axis of some kind. all these active particles, from the microscopic spindle to this gigantic fish school to these extracts, are all orientable objects, all of which have some kind of internal degrees of freedom which take up and use up energy and do something. And you can see in all of these cases visible evidence for strong orientational order, liquid crystalline order, right? So this is why a liquid crystal physicist should naturally be interested in these systems. The kind of orientational order you can see in conventional, kind of liquid crystals that are in my display screen is, of course, this kind, where you don't worry about the difference between head and tail of the particle. Either the particle doesn't have a head and tail, or the ordering is such as not to respect the head and tail. And as you all know, the way you measure the orientational order is you assign a unit vector, and you look at this quantity which is bilinear in that unit vector, you average it, and if it differs from 1/3 or 1/d in d dimensions times unit density, you say, aha, there's local anisotropy. You don't normally, in conventional equilibrium liquid crystals, find order in which there's a global polarity. It's a little hard to find a macroscopic, harder to find a macroscopic ferroelectric nematic, for instance, right? However, in collections of active particles, particles which are moving and blocking, global polar orientation order, characterized by a non-zero average of a local unit vector, is actually is the norm, is the default, right? So we'll talk about both of these. Interestingly, even these pictures, we can. Interestingly, even in living cells, you can find true nematic order. So even though it's a living system, it consists of cells that are actually using up energy and doing work, and these are enormous objects. That's scale bars of 100 microns. So the agitation and the random motion of these objects is not thermal motion. These are these cells, melanocytes. You can see clear evidence of nematic order, and of course, you know the order because of the defect, and I think all of you in the room, especially in this picture, can see the signature of the strength minus half defect. So even in active living matter, you can find apolar true nematic order. Sorry, you can just tell me where it is. I'll keep.
It's
Okay, here just for fun is an example of polar orientation order, a living polar nematic. This is really crystal physics because the movie was taken by a crystal physicist. And it's actually fantastic. You see these all the time in the monsoon in Hyderabad. That's a respectable polar nematic. So, okay. You can make apolar nematics by activating dead particles. Again, so I complete all this one. Yeah. So this is a system about which I'll say a little bit more. It's a surface with vibrating particles. It's the experiment's done by a former student of mine who is now doing something completely different in this building, but he's not in town today. All right. You can even, in a similar vibrated layer system, realize Smectic order. And this is a snapshot, not a movie. That's basmati rice, and it's on a surface. And the surface, this is a snapshot, or maybe slightly time-average snapshot from something being vibrated up and down, and you can see fairly respectable stripes and dislocations and so forth.
Is that a single layer or
just single layer? Single layer. Yeah. Actually, we wanted to study single layer systems because we were interested in number fluctuations. So we didn't want them piling on each other that we couldn't measure. We never did any major experiments on these. The length scales were insufficient. But the reason, you will see later why I call these systems active. But anyway. There's also the question of what dynamical regime one works in. When did I start talking? 10 minutes ago? You can study these systems either in bulk, study active systems in bulk fluid, or on dry terrain. In this situation, the fact that these particles, the momentum of these particles together with the ambient fluid is a constant is important. Here too, it's true that the momentum of the wildebeest plus the Earth is a constant, but it doesn't play a serious role. The Earth can be treated as a momentum sink. For those of you who do polymer dynamics, you can think of this as like rows and that like zin. Okay, so the question I posed, or we pose as physicists is, in what way is an ordered phase of dead Brownian rods different from an ordered phase of living bacteria, for example? Okay, the question of what use that, the issue of what use that question is to biology really comes later. First, we just want to understand these systems. Okay, just to give you an example of a flock both in a computer simulation experiment. So let's start with the very simplest systems, and historically the first active orientation ordered systems to be studied, which were computer simulations by Bicek of particles which, let's say, let this black particle be the one you're looking at. It looks at its neighbors, which I've drawn in blue here. It aligns with them, and then it moves. Of course, neighbors also move. So basically, inspect neighborhood, align with neighbors with finite precision, as well as a little bit of noise, and then move. And the interesting thing that happens is that as you go from either low density to high density, or high noise to low noise, you go from an isotropic phase to a polar nematic phase, a polar nematic moving phase. The order parameter is both the vector describing orientation and the velocity. So the order parameter itself is a time reversal non-invariant object, because it's a velocity. Okay? And because we are talking about ordering in a system in a driven state where time reversal is not invariance, all the laws that they teach you about thermal equilibrium are repeated, and it opens up a much wider range of possibilities. Okay. So this term actually, living liquid systems, was applied to these kinds of systems by Hans Kuhler many years ago. Okay, the fun thing is you can take this simple model, align and move, and make a variant of it which doesn't know head from tail. By the way, I'm as I said, I'm using the liberty to talk about stuff other than active Smectics. I trust that's all right. Questions I'm trying to get. Supposing you consider a bunch of rods, and you want to think of the slightest non-equilibrium modification of, let us say, a hard rod Monte Carlo. Suppose you had a bunch of needles, idealized long thin needles, and you were doing Monte Carlo. And let's say you're doing number conserving Monte Carlo. And what you would do is you take a needle and you shift it a little bit in any direction, making sure not to overlap any other needle. And a move like that actually respects detailed balance and will eventually generate at low concentrations an isotropic phase, at high concentrations a nematic phase. The minimal modification you can make of that system to make it not an equilibrium system but an active system is just to say, let it move preferentially along its length. Okay? It doesn't know head from tail, so what it will do is it will move forward or back by some small amount, much smaller than the size of its defined neighborhood. And that's all you do. That's the only change you introduce. The amazing thing is that that changes everything. The reason that changes everything is that if you have a rod that's aligning with its neighbors and then moving, the time reversal of that move is that it moves and then it aligns with its new neighbors. So at non-zero density, when it has neighbors, these two are not equivalent. So the system doesn't have detailed balance and it's an active nematic. And the cool thing is, you start with that rule and you actually carefully coarse-grain it and ask, what would the equations of motion be for the density field and the nematic order parameter in a system like this? And you get this. And you get exactly the equations of motion that we wrote down. So actually this game, part of this game started when we wrote down, that is, at least Sima, John Conrad and myself, wrote down the equations of motion for a system like this by what somebody the other day called something guesswork, I forget what it was. Anyway, pure thought, okay? But later on we started with these rules and showed that precisely this term emerged. This is a very funny term.
Can you switch on the lines?
Yeah. Will I be able to?
See people.
Yeah, I'll much better. Yeah. So the term up there says that there is a current proportional to the local concentration times the divergence of the nematic orientation tensor plus Now this thing has two pieces. This is just anisotropic diffusion, current proportional to concentration gradient. with a coefficient that depends on local anisotropy. This nobody has any trouble with. You have this in any equilibrium dynamic. The weird thing is from this rule, this comes along for free, and it is simple model with the same coefficient. And this says something very different. What this says is that if you have an orientational curvature, you'll have a flux. Now, no, if you take an ordinary pneumatic and split, it doesn't start traveling, it relaxes back. So you all know the director mode of pneumatic. The bend or split relax at a rate, diffusively at a rate given by the Frank constant divided by Scott Gibbs. The fun thing in these systems is that this term means that orientational fluctuations are hugely coupled to density fluctuations. And so what it means is that in steady state, so something is missing here. This is, yeah, I'm sorry, there's a typo here. There should be a derivative there which is fading. Okay. There's an active current proportional to the curvature, and there's a diffusive current proportional to readings of the concentration. So in steady state, these two balance each other. Angle fluctuations, as all good liquid crystal physicists know, are big in the pneumatic phase, because that's what the director fluctuation, that's what gives pneumatics that ability. But in these out of equilibrium systems, it means density fluctuations are huge, as big as angle fluctuations. What it turns out to mean is that the standard deviation in the number of particles in a given region is proportional to the mean, not to the square root of the mean, which is a fairly dramatic prediction, which was eventually confirmed in experiments on this funny analog system, this random monolayer, and earlier in a numerical study of a particulate tabular. I want to spend 2 minutes on this point. That piece of physics is now old, it's about 5, 7, 8 years old. But this idea, I think, is worth emphasizing. This tells you how you can make an active liquid crystal out of dead particles. Basically, if you have a monolayer of particles, and you pump energy into that monolayer in a direction perpendicular to those that you are looking at. So you want to study the 2D physics of this monolayer, which you're viewing edge on here. You shake it up and down, you apply an oscillating AC electric field, or you pump a heat current through it in that monolayer. Whatever you do, this system is now a pump system, and one way of seeing that the particles are going to move in very surprising ways is that as you toss the particles up and down, they go up and they come down. In general, they don't come down flat, they come down one end or the other first. And so when this thing goes up and comes down, it will get impelled along its length. So by this simple expedient, you make a collection of rods which preferentially move along their length. Okay? That's not just an isotropic downward motion, that has this curvature. So these systems should be a good way of making imitation active pneumatics, active Smectics, etc. So a mesophase in a vibrated monolayer, provided you don't break the symmetry in the plane. You shake it up and down, any ordering that takes place in the plane is happening spontaneously. So this is actually why I mentioned it. Okay, you can of course now ask what happens if you put the whole thing in a fluid. An active particle in a fluid is something which moves around in the fluid by executing some kind of local bounded motion. The particle plus the fluid is jointly a force-free system. There's no external force on it, they're not sedimenting. And so it turns out that basic active particle is a little local generator of flow. It could be a bacterium which pushes flow outwards, or an alga which pulls fluid inwards along its axis. So an activity is a permanent force dipole on a particle, and if you coarse-grain that, you find that a local amount of pneumatic order Q gives you a local anisotropic stress. Now you should, again, the liquid crystal physicist should realize that this is a weird thing. If you have a jar of perfectly aligned equilibrium pneumatic on the table, its configuration is anisotropic, but its stress obeys Pascal's law. It's a liquid. But the moment you switch on activity, that association to equilibrium physics is lost. And the line phase is intrinsically under uniaxial tension or compression. And this gives rise to many funny properties. And presumably Julia actually talked about the active stress in the lecture. Okay. And you can imagine particles with active stress and whose sort of body position with respect to the flow is symmetrical or asymmetrical. These guys will be described by a whole lot of parameter, these by the map. Okay, so here's my first, okay, now how do I do this? Maybe you answer that. So this is my first question. I told you that these active particles in general are dipolar force densities, right? Because you've got the body moving forward and the tail pushing the fluid backward, whatever it is. Yeah, they probably have no So I've given you 4 examples: a colloid undergoing electrophoresis, a particle settling under gravity, a particle moving because of a chemical reaction on the surface, and a swimming bacteria. So I've given you some choices. Which of these has a monopole of the force density? Okay. How much time am I supposed to do? How much time should I give them for each question? Yeah. Excuse me?
Yeah, it is slow.
It's accurate. It's just that my computer isn't linked to it, so I have to switch to it. So you can click, you can vote with your thumbs. Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was complicated. A was 1 and 2. Yeah, that's how it was. No, they got it wrong. Okay. Some people got it right, which is B, but not very many.
So it was B?
Only B has a force monopole. Electrophoresis is not the same as settling under gravity. When you apply electric field to a neutral system, the coions move one way and the counterions move the opposite way. So it's even when you apply it, it's true when you apply an electric field to a charge in vacuum, you're applying a force. When you apply an electric field to a colloid in a fluid, the colloid has a charge only because it's something called ionizing surface. As a neutral system, you apply a field, the total force in that system is 0, even with the field on. There's a stress, but when the force is the divergence of the stress, the integral of that force density is 0. Okay, slowly learning how to use this. So you can use these ideas to write down equations of the crystal hydrodynamics, which Julia, I think, did tell you about, and various groups wrote this down. And it basically consists of the usual equations of hydrodynamics modified by just one extra little piece in the stress. And in principle, if you write down the equation of the concentration, one extra piece in the current, that is. And it turns out that extra small piece, even though it looks almost like the others, makes a huge difference.
The sign of that makes a difference too.
The sign makes a big difference also. Yes. So I showed you algae and bacteria, and one of them pushes fluid out, and one pulls fluid in. That makes a difference too. Makes a big difference. And basically, what you get, don't worry about the details of the equations. All you need to note is that there's an orientational instability, of which I'll show you a cartoon, whose relaxation rate is the natural time scale or inverse time scale you would make if somebody gives you a stress and a viscosity. Somebody stops you in a dark alley and gives you a stress and a viscosity and says, make a time out of it. You will divide the viscosity by the stress and make a time. So if you have a system character, you will, because viscosity into strain rate is stress. Strain rate has units of inverse time. And so basically you have an unbounded system characterized by the natural scale of stress. It has a built-in natural time scale, which is actually important because many cellular processes like cell division in suitable experiments show a time scale that doesn't depend on the size. And this is actually linked to this fact. So it turns out anyway that the guys that are contractile always go unstable in splay in an unbounded system, and the extensile ones in bend, which can be seen in these cartoons. Basically, if you have a splay and these are contractile, they pull more here than here, so the fluid flows that way here and that way here, thereby further shearing the region that is already checked. So this is now, again, become fairly standard in this game. And experiments have seen it, numerical simulations, which don't use our equation, but use individual particles, to see it and so on. And this is the generic or spontaneous flow instability of active pneumatics. So actually, the reason I told you these two or three key points, big number fluctuations, active instabilities, is to set the stage for the official topic of this talk, which is active Smectics. And the reason is that what you want to know is, okay, we've studied these orientationally ordered systems. They seem to be very prone to fluctuations, very prone to instabilities. Will the presence of translation order and the corresponding elasticity somehow control this? Because what we saw was, in the pneumatic phases, even the presence of pneumatic elasticity wasn't enough at long length scales to control the system. These systems just had these instabilities. So that's what we want to ask. Okay? So the simplest kind of translation order you can think of is one-dimensional translation order. And it's actually not a bad idea to study this in active systems because non-equilibrium systems are really prone to stripe formation. You see them in lots and lots of systems. If you write down your favorite amplitude equation, it often in some range parameter space will make stripes. If you take a layer of fluid and heat it from below, you will get stripes. There's many others. So that's why I want to talk about active Smectics. Partly I want to talk about active Smectics because I grew up working on Smectics and I still like to work on them. There's also that fact. Students will realize that people sometimes work on what they're working on now because they worked on it back then. I will talk only about apolar systems. How many of you were at John Toner's talk on polar Smectics? Polar active Smectics? None. Some of you may. Anyway, I will talk about apolar. So John was talking about a collection of what John was talking about was a phase of moving stripes. Okay. I'm talking about a phase of stripes which you can imagine is composed of particles. Imagine you've got particles that sort of shuffle back and forth but form a stripe phase. Okay. And much of this stuff is contained in a recent paper by my student Tapan Atrapak, who is now at Berlin, and John.
You mean the whole layer is vibrating back and forth?
No, you're looking at it from the top. You could create this active state maybe by vibrating it vertically. We don't vibrate it back and forth. Actually, that brings me to my next kicker question very soon. So I don't I don't shake it back and forth. Biochemical activity or vibration or some internal process may pump the system in a direction perpendicular to those that you are monitoring. It condenses spontaneously into a stripe phase. What are the properties of that stripe phase? And what can you say about the properties of that stripe phase from pure thought? Okay. And active systems do tend to form stripes. I mean, to a mother's loving eyes, some of these look like Smectics, like this one in experiments. The numerical studies of flocking systems by Chater and group find states which both in polar and in bipolar mixtures often form stripes which, if you wait long enough, seem to settle down into a regular periodic pattern. It's difficult because those systems, the length scale which the stripes form is fairly big, so to have a system in which you have many stripes and you can come to a clear judgment of whether it's a true order phase, it poses huge numerical difficulties. So, maybe you could just do it with something simpler and household like that. Okay. Most of you are students of physics, so you do know the fundamentals of Smectics. It's a one-dimensional spatially periodic modulation in more than one dimension. One of its directions is solid-like, the other is liquid-like. The direction is chosen spontaneously. Right? It could align in any of these directions, any. Right? And it costs an energy of proportion to wave number squared to compress the layering. It costs, in directions perpendicular to the ordering direction, the cost of distortions is proportional to wave number to the 4. Because it doesn't have a shear modulus, it only costs to bend the layers. And this is responsible for many of the interesting properties of ordinary equilibrium Smectics. And you find modes which at long wavelength correspond to second sound with this nice direction dependent speed. And if you go into the overdamped regime, you have a single but direction dependent relaxation rate, proportional to cosine theta sine theta, and proportional to the ratio of the layer compression modulus to the viscosity. Because it's so easy to make the layers undulate, a little bit of thermal energy makes them undulate a lot. And this greatly weakens the order. Again, you may remember from your solid state physics courses, there's a thing called the Debye-Waller factor, and people in the 1930s panicked because they thought that you had a collection of mass points absolutely fixed. You should get backscattering, but if they were vibrating around, they should all go away. And the Debye-Waller showed that it wasn't so bad after all, that it only lowers the delta function by a finite amount. You can ask the analogous question for a Smectic. You've got a striped system, it's fluctuating. By how much do fluctuations impair or reduce the order? Okay, so that's my next critical question. So, equilibrium Smectic order, my question to you is it always destroyed by fluctuations? Or is it destroyed by fluctuation? Is it not ultimately unaffected by fluctuation in 3 dimensions and quasi-long range in 2? Is it long range in both? Or is it quasi-long range in 3 and short range in 2? Of course, to answer this question, you need to know what quasi-long range order is. How many of you know what quasi-long range order is? Okay. All right. What it means is the following. Long range order means when you do a scatter diffraction experiment, you get drag peaks. Short range order means you kind of get a bump in this space. Quasi-long range means at the same point in the spiral space where you were expecting a drag peak, you get an algebraic singularity. So it goes, let's say that's some vector point q0, you get scattering that goes 1 over q minus q0 to some power, some power eta. So let's make the question simpler. Like these quiz shows, you can, there's 50-50, you eliminate 2 of the answers. So at least let's pick between B and D. I'll be happy if we can do that. So time is running now.
The ball is not
No, but you can, your devices are on. No.
on. Yeah, but you have to activate the ball.
Oh, you can reset it. Oh, that's good. Switch time.
So
Oh, good, we can watch it.
The balls are more
But it's a biased ball when you see it.
That's true, they should get to see it. This is a tragic ball. We're doing the second part of this ball already. This is actually, it's very interesting. It's the screen is mediating interaction between the audience. Well, okay, I think we can. One red. That is really disappear. Okay, we can stop the ball. This is pretty good. So you have it right. What's E? What's E, guys? All right. Okay, good. You got it. D is the right answer. Smectic order is more delicate than crystalline order. Crystalline order is quasi-long range in 2 dimensions and long range in 3. Smectic order is quasi-long range in 3 dimensions. It's one of the sort of classics of crystal physics, which Landa and Piles first pointed out that you can't have one-dimensional order in 3 dimensions, but Caillier and some others point out that what you have is this funny and rather delicate thing, and beautiful experiments in the 70s confirmed it, and in the late 80s on diatropics. Okay, so fluctuations almost but don't completely kill Smectic order in 3 dimensions. In 2 dimensions, they really wipe it out. Any 2-dimensional system, and this comes about because the intensity, the amplitude of layer fluctuations is 1 upon qz squared plus q12 where z and qz and q12 are the wave vector in the z and curve direction, in plane direction. If you do this sum over all wave vectors, you find it diverges as a power in 2 dimensions and as a log in 3, which ultimately is what gives you the answer that I mentioned. And something that those of you who haven't done it, I would encourage you to do. It's kind of a sacrament of it. Okay, here's another question about broken symmetries. Here I have somebody, these guys, who have produced a stripe face. They produced it by shaking a fluid with some sediment at the bottom of it. These are called underwater sand ripples, and they also, I think, have a Cambridge history to them in some way, in the 1850s or something. Which symmetries are broken spontaneously in this system? So I've got a system, I shake it back and forth, and I produce stripes. So I must engage the clicker again.
The answer is can I see the question again?
Yeah, well,
The question.
wait. The word spontaneous simultaneously is important. It's obvious the pattern is broken rotation invariance and translation invariance. If you close your eyes to the presence of the topological effects, you pretend it's perfect stress. A is rotation only, B is translation only, C is both, D is neither. I couldn't think of very clever options. Think of 4 options. Yeah. That's very funny. So in fact, the correct answer, I won't, we won't do a further discussion. The correct answer is B. Because the way to produce these stripes actually, if you agitate the dish every which way, in a direction independent way, you won't get stripes. You will get some funny pattern or some mess. You need to actually shake it back. As I was trying to with my hand gesture, you need to shake this back and forth. You will get stripes, which means translation variance was broken spontaneously by the system. You didn't make the stripes by drawing them there. It settled down those stripe pattern, but the rotation, you picked a direction, otherwise you don't get it. So this is fun to try at home. But you need to filter the sand very fine. If it rolls too easily, you won't get it. You need to have sand that is small enough that when a little bile builds up, it kind of stays, even after shaking. So it's nice physics. And it's kind of mesophase physics. Okay. So now we want to use a lot of time. Yes, excuse me. Okay, I've learned. So now we want to build the equations of motion to an active Smectic. So what we've done so far is to understand the physics of active orientation ordered systems, understand the physics of non-active Smectics, and now we want to combine those two and build the physics of active Smectics. So the trouble is, because we're out of equilibrium, we can't say, well, we just use whatever we knew in equilibrium systems and derive all the forces from a free energy function. We have to work off equilibrium, not at equilibrium. And we have to use these same variables, the orientation field and the concentration field and so forth, write down force and torque balance, include these funny new active stresses, and work out the motion. So that's what we need. And we try to do it fairly quickly, both in the case where there's bulk fluid whose momentum is conserved, and in the case where in the other case where there is a dimension. In the case where you only have a dry system without fluid. And essentially the way it works, don't read most of this, just note that you take all the usual stresses, elasticity, pressure, viscosity, etc., and add active stresses. And those active stresses come from this idea that if you've got a local oriented state, you've got an active stress proportional to the director times the director, with a coefficient which has one sign. I think with my notation it's negative sign for pushing out and positive sign for pulling in. So there's that one parameter W, which is the intrinsic stress carried by the particles, anisotropic stress, and we want to see what it does. And so you can build the equations of motion. So basically what will happen is we say the stress is the activity parameter times the local concentration of active particles times n times n. You can then put that in the equations of motion. You can use the time-honored fact that if you've got a layered system with a director field, then it's difficult for the director field not to point normal to layers, as again, people who have done, let us say, a description of Smectics in which you include the director field would know. And so the director fluctuations are slaved to the layer fluctuations. So you end up getting an active system which is an extra piece in the stress proportional to the gradients of the layer displacement. And the other active object is this current coming from my friend here, this term. Put those all together. And what you find is terms, if you look at this looks kind of like a tension to the layers. You know, a Smectic layers in a bulk Smectic system, the tilt, because the direction of ordering is arbitrary and the system doesn't have a shear modulus, you shouldn't have a cost for tilting the layers. The weird thing about activity is that it acts like a tilt modulus of either a positive or a negative sign. It acts kind of like you put on a field that is stabilizing the layers pointing this way, or put on a field that wants the layers to point perpendicular, depending on the sign. But anyway, you can put those into the equations of motion. It's not a simple modification of free energy because you can't rewrite all the equations for the concentration, the displacement, and the momentum density with the same modification of free energy. And if, for the right sign of activity, you suppress the giant number of fluctuations, you suppress the big fluctuations that kill or long-range order dimensions, and you end up giving second sound and non-zero speed in the layers. So all these rather amusing things happen all as a result of the same activity parameters.
Can I have a question on the,
Yeah.
the tension? Where is
Yeah.
the tension acting? Along the layers? Or where is
No, so the point is you've got these filaments. So depending on whether the extensile or contractile, it acts either like a system under compression or a system under tension. And so you can, and okay, they don't look at the equations in any detail other than note the displacement variance now ends up going as 1 over wave number squared in all dimensions. Therefore, it will be as ordered as a solid is in any given dimension. Let's say it will be ordered, it will have quasi-long range order in 2 dimensions and true long range order in 3 dimensions. Basically because the Debye-Waller factor from a variance for the displacement that goes as 1 over wave number squared has qualitatively the same properties as those for a solid. But it depends on getting the sign of the activity right and the activity not going too far in the favorable direction either. So you need extensile activity. You need the system to act as though it's pushing outwards, that is, as though it's under compression. If you have contractile activity, I'll show you some pictures of this. And don't even look at this equation. Concentration fluctuations turn out to be finite because of the presence of Smectic elasticity. Okay. Now, if you have a collection of contractile filaments, then you can see that the presence of Smectic order doesn't really help you very much. The reason is this: you've got filaments pointing like this. Supposing you spray them slightly and they're contractile, that old instability whose cartoon I showed you a while ago will happen. And Smectic elasticity, because it's from layer bending, is too weak to do anything about it. So a layered system of contractile filaments with contractile axis along the layer model is as unstable as it was in the absence of Smectic elasticity. The extensile guys are stable unless you push it too far. If you push it too far, it does something that resembles Euler buckling, because it's as though you're taking this system and pushing along the axis. And at some point, you can imagine the layers undergoing a bend instability if you cross a threshold. And there's other weird things going on that we haven't completely sorted out yet. If you include a coupling of the displacement and the concentration, somewhere in the parameter space, it looks like it's going to a spontaneous oscillating, a breathing Smectic. But that's still not sorted out fully. Okay. I'll just stop in for 5 minutes. Okay. Let's try to at least understand the presence, the suppression of the lambda powers effect. Basically what happens, remember, in an equilibrium system, the cost of layer displacements goes to wave number 4 in the layers. But in the presence of, and this is what gave us this thing that I already talked about, in the presence of activity, if it has the right sign, a local curvature is a local polar asymmetry, and for the right sign of activity, which turns out to be extensile, should result in a velocity that which result in a kind of analog of what's it called? Curve. You have some curve domains moving under curvature. You use the word
motion by mean curvature?
Yeah, motion. That's it. Something resembling a motion by mean curvature. Okay. So you end up getting a del squared U term in the equation of motion displacement field, even for wave vectors in the layers. So it acts like a Smectic field. And that's ultimately what gives you this 1 over 2 squared. And that's why you get the variance going as log in 2 dimensions and finite in 2 dimensions. So you can basically see, take a very simplified system, only a layer displacement field. That system actually is more or less has the dynamics of an XY model or a 2D solid. So you can basically import all the physics that you already know from 2D melting or from the order disorder constant of the XY model to say that an active Smectic of the stabilized variety should melt at finite noise strength or finite temperature through a dislocation mediated mechanism. Ask you one more question. Oh, sad rats, I already told you the answer. Bad. I already told you the answer was B, so we'll skip that question. So we've already agreed that you can actually have a quasi-long-range order that's meant to be 2 dimensions. So the next question we want to ask is, what about dislocation? What is the physics of dislocations in an active Smectic? So once you realize that you can map, for some purposes, a stabilized active Smectic to something resembling an XY or 2D solid, you know that the physics of dislocation should be like the physics of vortices in an XY model. And what that will mean is that as you increase the noise level, at some point it should become favorable for the system to free up dislocations. But up to that point, you should have a relatively fuzz around the Torres phase. So here's a question. How many of you know about the energetics of dislocations in Smectics? Well, okay, let's pose this question to those who do know it. You've got a dislocation with Burger's vector B in a Smectic with compression modulus B and capital B and bending, layer bending, elastic constant K, with this ratio being lambda. Which of these is the correct expression for the energy per unit length? Let's think about 2D Smectic. So I've taken a 3D sample, I've sliced it, I've got a bunch of layers lying, and I've got a bunch of stripes in the plane. Which of these is the energy reserve of this equation? So I have to start with excuse me? A. Oh, I shouldn't show you what's going on. Yeah, okay, so I'll switch to the this is for an equilibrium Smectic. Okay, I'm not putting in equilibrium, because then we don't know how to talk about energy failure. Okay, these should be low. You 30% have it right. So to work out Smectic elasticity is funny. Because distortions are so soft in the plane of the layers, it actually doesn't cost a whole lot to stick into dislocation. So a dislocation line has an energy per unit length that doesn't depend on the different systems. The energy per unit length of a Smectic at an edge dislocation in Smectic screw value is finite. So what that means is, since the energy per unit length of a dislocation line in a 3D Smectic is finite, the energy of a point dislocation in a 2D Smectic equilibrium is finite. That means that any non-zero temperature is always a finite concentration of 3D dislocations. There are no true 2D Smectics at zero temperature. Okay? So not only do thermal fluctuations of the layers, of undulations of the layers wipe it out, dislocations also proliferate. So now the cool thing is, this is my last couple of slides. The answer is B. Okay, it turns out to do elasticity, there are two interesting things. One is that it's finite, and second is it's actually linear in the Burger's vector, which is a weird fact which is available. So as a result, a large enough sample of 2D Smectic at thermal equilibrium is always melted. And the question we can then pose is what happens with that. But I kind of already told you, with activity, it more or less acts like it has a Q squared energy in all directions. Even though it's not an equilibrium system, you can get into effective equilibrium description. Dislocations unbind very much as in 2D solids or in the XY model, and you get a phase diagram which in 2 dimensions looks like this. So this is noise strength, and the noise is not necessarily temperature, but noise, temperature plus active noise. And this is that coefficient B, which was the coefficient, what's this? Excuse me. This is the coefficient of the extra, the tilt modulus term, the Q squared term in the layers. Okay. Now, and that's what the phase boundary looks like in active state. Dramatic. Let's not worry about the 3D case right now. The blue line represents a typical locus that would arise if you vary the concentration of active particles. To vary the concentration of active particles, you do two things. One is you enhance this coefficient. The other is you probably produce some more noise than was there in the real system. So the equilibrium system here on the no activity axis is purely dynamic because in 2D you don't have equilibrium Smectics. So you now crank up the active particle concentration. You will first go into a Smectic because you acquire a tilt modulus, and then you will go out of the Smectic because the active noise will overwhelm you. So it's interesting, generically we say that as you vary the concentration of active particles, you should get the reentrant behavior from active pneumatic to active Smectic to active pneumatic. The situation is less interesting in three-dimensional than I will go. And I will close. So, basically I've sort of taken you through a rapid tour through active liquid crystals. I've told you about how Smectics with uniaxial activity can be stabilized against many of the physics that weaken Smectics normally, but can also be prone to instabilities if the activity is of the wrong sign. And then I've shown you in detail how lambda files and weakening of long-range order is suppressed, dislocation mediated melting in 2 dimensions, and I've argued that these considerations should apply to Smectics not only made from logical components, but any system energized in directions perpendicular to those which you monitor in the system. So it will be interesting to see more experimental realizations like Smectics in bio or other contexts. And a major part of our current efforts is to see the ways in which active Smectics aren't like systems, like Smectics in uniaxial field. So thank you.